here. So Texas Tech, they got an interesting year this year. We've been talking a lot about college football, and it's been exciting in the last couple of days. So to join us and talk a little more about the Texas Tech Red Raiders, here's Chris Level from Locked On Texas Tech. I've been saying this all the last couple of days, and it's already going to be 2 weeks straight. I cannot wait for the college football season to start anytime soon because it's an open playing field now. With the adjustment of the college football playoffs, where all 12 teams, you now will have the 4 best. So conference bid is not going to matter from here. And then the 5 through 12, they're going to have to fight tooth and nail to get into the big show of the national championship. But there are some teams that we know outside looking in that didn't get into the playoffs last year are having high expectations of, hey, we want to end up getting in there and we want to show our stuff and show our program that we too belong in the big dance. How do you expect this college football season to really kind of go about? And even with the expectation that could be looming around the corner for Texas Tech.
Yeah, Jake, thanks for having me on. Obviously the Red Raiders are in the Big 12 Conference, and it's wide open. I mean, look no further than last year when Arizona State was picked to finish dead last, and they won the thing and almost won a playoff game. Go figure. That's sports. I think Texas Tech is absolutely a contender in the Big 12, and if you make it to Arlington, I think, you obviously have a chance to make it into the playoff. You asked me about the college football season. It's fascinating because in the last, I feel like 2 months, we've talked about house case. We've talked about portal. We've talked about playoff format, which league likes this format, who's mad at this league, expansion going on in the Pac-12. And you mentioned like the season coming up, and that's the fun part. That's the part that we all love so much about all this stuff. And I guess May, June, July is all reserved for all the shenanigans that go on in this lovely sport that we call college football. But that's just the reality of it. So it's good to be talking ball is the main thing. But yeah, man, I think, as you ask about the team that I've covered for 20 plus years. I mean, they're going to be either a fringe top 25 team or a top 20 team or top 15 team. It just depends on where you look. It's all in the eye of the beholder, and spent a lot of money trying to put a team together. And I think that they feel like they've put their best foot forward, but again, it guarantees you nothing. You have to now go earn it, and we'll see what's around the corner come the fall.
So it was interesting because I did have a couple of previous guests that were on here that were also in the Big 12 covering a couple teams like Kansas State and such. What we saw from Arizona State, I mean, ultimately it was a very impressive season for them nonetheless, and going toe-to-toe against Texas. But one thing for sure was there was a lot of shakeups in this conference last year. I mean, you had Kansas out of nowhere just come in and try to play spoiler against Colorado and several others that were up there. Now they're walking in like, hey, we finished off on a big note. We want to go even further than what last year gave us at the start. So there's a lot of expectations, at least in this conference. But to really truthfully outlook this, I mean, Texas Tech, what's kind of the game plan from here? Because you got a couple teams there that are ready for, the trench game where it's ground and pound, tough defenses, but then also some dynamic offensive playmakers up from here. And that's kind of something Texas Tech, they really want to be prepared for, to especially competing within their conference, right?
Yeah, the fascinating thing about where Texas Tech was in the league last year is that the two teams that played for the Big 12 championship in Arlington were Iowa State and Arizona State, and you beat both of them. And had one more conference win, you let one get away in Fort Worth against TCU. You did not have a good game against Baylor at home. And then Colorado, there was some calls there, but you just didn't have enough. Colorado was just better than you were. And had you gotten one of those games, you would have been playing in Arlington. The margins are just, they're razor thin. And so the game plan, the question that you ask, I think, and you mentioned the word trenches, when they hit the portal in December, I think that's exactly why they felt they did not make it to Arlington, is because they weren't good enough up front on either side of the ball. And that's why these SEC teams are so much better than everybody. Typically, it's they have better big people and more of them than the next guy. And so they went and added, I think, of their 21 portal additions, I think 10 of those are linemen. 3 new starters on the offensive line, 4 new starters on the defensive line, and some depth pieces to go with it. And these aren't let's just spin the wheel and take a chance on a kid that was highly recruited that hadn't been playing somewhere. These are all kids that have absolutely played and have been all conference guys, or whatever the case may be. They've got plenty on tape to evaluate at the college game, and so that's why. But in the Big 12. You could sit here and tell me Kansas State. You could tell me Iowa State. You could certainly tell me Arizona State, which, in my opinion, that should be the favorite until somebody knocks them off with as much as they have coming back, even trying to replace Cam Scatteraboo. I think there's plenty of Baylor support out there. BYU had a really good season. They bring a lot back. There's some question marks around their quarterback right now. We'll see kind of what happens there, but spin the wheel on who should be the favorite. There is no-brainer favorite, although Arizona State's as close as you're going to come to that because they won it last year. But it's a league that, you're right, it's very competitive. The margins are razor thin, and it's going to be a 1-game difference depending on who makes it into the title game or not. And that's, as we talk about playoff format and all those things, I really wish, I don't know, I'm probably wishing for stuff that we're just not going to get, but I really wish that every league played 9 conference games instead of 8. I think it's just different. You look at the tiebreakers and all the jumbled up standings in like the ACC or the SEC, where if you just played one more conference game, it would be a bit more sorted out. And maybe if Texas Tech would have played one less conference game last year, they would have been the ones playing in Arlington. Who knows? But yeah, game plan equals trenches. That's exactly what they wanted to add, and they did so.
I'll tell you what, though, and I think that was perfectly said, because I'm in the same agreement, because it's a difference maker, right? Because ultimately, the sport itself, like, I know with the NIL and the transfer portal, nothing's perfect, but at the same time, you want to get consistency. And at the same time, that's where programs with coaching, recruitment, and such, it's a consistent role. I still am on the fences that I believe we need to get a CEO in here to at least balance this, because it's a lot. New money, it's a new dynamic too, because everybody's trying to adjust to this. And I still am on the side that I believe, even with the transfer portal, you got to treat this like an NFL offseason. Okay, wrap up all the games, wrap up all the bowl games as well, because then the coaches and the players can be focused. All the rest of it, can figure itself out later, because then that's when, you're going to accumulate players, whether recruits or, within the transfer portal, depending on, how much money you spend. But at the same time, you just want to limit the distractions at the end of the day, because that's where the prime focus of the roster build and the competitiveness, even getting into the playoffs themselves, is what's really going to make a big factor.
Yeah, the sport is largely broken from the standpoint, and I think coaches agree with this, and that's why they're trying to get to one portal window instead of 2. Tech played Arkansas in their bowl game in Memphis, Tennessee, and it was, Arkansas's backups were better than Texas Tech's backups, is essentially what that game was, because so many players have opted out, or they're in the portal, or or they're going to go pro, and it's just a bit of a mess. But December, it's unfortunate because there's just way too many things happening at the exact same time, and this is why the general manager position exists. This is why you have, to your point about the NFL part of this, you have almost like a front office staff that is working on things while the coaches are doing, what they're supposed to be doing. And it's just, it makes December obviously not boring, but I think Texas Tech, when they fell just short of the title game, there was a lot of motivation. Like, we're just right there. So because you're not in the playoff, you have plenty of extra time. And truth be told, you're worried about the bowl game, but not really worried about it. It's not like, hey, man, we're going to go put our best foot forward and all that. But they really put a lot of effort and time and money, most specifically, into trying to fix their roster via the portal. And they certainly did that in December. But you're right. It's the NFL aspect is certainly, because that's what these coaches want, is they want almost like the OTAs. I mean, I think that the traditional spring football is going to go away at some point, and you're going to kind of spread it out, push it closer to the summertime, give your team more of an offseason. And this is all right out of the NFL. I mean, that's exactly, where a lot of this is coming from. I mean, Jim Nagy is the new general manager for the Oklahoma Sooners. And where did he cut his teeth? I mean, obviously Senior Bowl stuff, but so there's so many things about the NFL that is spilling over into college football, and some have a problem with it, others don't. I've just kind of gotten to the point where you kind of have to embrace it because it's a different sport than it was 5 years ago, heck, even 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I like I said, I think a lot of teams and a lot of even fans are just adjusting to the new norm up from here, with college football. But again, I've always been a big fan. I love, it's just so tribal in college football, unlike the NFL, because I mean, you go to college. I live in Colorado, so I could go down to Boulder or I could go down to Fort Collins, and I can go to these college towns and just know that every Saturday it's gonna be like all or nothing for them in the tailgate from the start to finish. It's just such a great atmosphere. But one quick question before transitioning. Man, I'm excited to see what Taj Brooks is going to bring to the table, because watching him last season, 1,500 yards, 17 scores, the kid was he was such a high prospect, and so I'm excited to see some, what his future will look like. But we know Texas Tech, they're going to need to really revamp up on that run game and the running backs by committee. Is there kind of a guy you've seen that can step in that role and really kind of take it by storm to help out the run game?
Yeah, Taj, hopefully he makes some noise up in Cincinnati this next year. He was a late round draft pick, phenomenal young man. Workhorse, picks up the blitz, gets the tough yards. All the things, right? And they leaned on him a bunch last year, and it is average to poor as their offensive line was last year. It's shocking that he still had 1,500 yards, and that's a credit to play calling and scheming up front and all those things. What is interesting around here is that there's a lot of expectations for your program this year, but you had to replace two coordinators. One of which it was your decision. You moved on from Tim DeRuyter on defense, but Zach Kitley, who coached the offense here in Joey McGuire's tenure, he moved on to go be the head coach at Florida Atlantic. So you've got a new offensive coordinator that came in here from Texas State named Mac Leftwich, and so the scheme is going to be a bit different. I think there's some air raid, which is like the Mike Leach terminology. There's also some of the Art Briles principles in what Mac wants to run. And so it's interesting as you look at, okay, well, how does the running back fit in to the equation? To answer your question, I think the young man that they brought in from the portal that was at USC last year named Quentin Joyner averaged 7 yards a carry. He was the backup there. He's originally from Houston, wanted to get back closer to home. I think he's probably as close to your every down back as you're going to get, but it will be by committee. They had two freshmen behind Taj last year that I think they're very excited about. I don't know if either one of them is ready to be like a 25 carry a game guy or anything. And I don't know if we know enough yet of what this offense is going to be to know if that's exactly what he wants either, talking about Coach Leftwich. So there's a lot of and it's tricky. You have expectations and you spend a lot of money on your roster and you have really good players and you have really good depth. But you have a couple of new schemes here, and sometimes it takes some time. I don't know how to compute all of that just yet, and what that will look like on how long it will take. But you have a veteran quarterback back, and on most of the players you brought in, they are older, matured, and all those things. But Quentin Joyner would be the answer to your question. I just don't know exactly what that looks like yet. But right now, I think they would tell you that it'll be running back by committee, and he would be the in charge of said committee.
So, transitioning to Texas Tech basketball. So, what a year they had. I mean, getting into the Elite Eight, and I thought they were definitely one of those teams, like just sneaky ones that that they were playing really good perimeter defense, and at the same time, getting the shots and controlling the clock. So, to me, ending off of the year that they did, and unfortunately coming up short against Florida, we know that the transfer portal was definitely one thing that kind of hit a bunch of teams. But, however, Texas Tech, I'm assuming, especially with how long you've covered them, they're not completely worried. But it is something that they have to prepare for going into next season, because ending a year like they did last year, I mean, they want to get much closer than what it gave them. So kind of outlooking, in basketball, because we know that, with this transfer portal, especially with where it's looking with the NIL money, where players are going to start coming back because the money now is starting to grow. And plus, two, players, I believe, are getting much more mature when you get 2 or an extra year in college to be prepared for the NBA. But I believe Texas Tech, with what they ended, they're going to be my team still that I would not even be sleeping on. This is going to be a team that they've really established well, and they want to get closer, maybe even potentially an appearance into the Final Four. How would you have outlooked last season? And now what's the motivation going into next year coming back into the tournament?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to do the radio broadcasting for Tech football and basketball, and so I was on the road with that team well into March and nearly April with Tech basketball and Coach McCaslin. And oh man, you were just this close to being in a Final Four in your home state, which would have been crazy. Was fortunate enough to be with them when they went to the Final Four in 2019, and if they'd have fouled up 3 at the end of that game versus Virginia, they may have been national champions. But anyway, that's sports. As far as basketball, because of that run in like 17, 18, and 19, that sweet spot when Chris Beard was here, basketball has just become wildly popular here. I mean, you have a 15,000 seat arena. Season tickets are sold out. It's just a hot ticket. And they have stayed competitive. When Grant came in, everybody knew he'd be a really good fit. You just weren't sure, okay, what's the ceiling here? And he went to the NCAA tournament in his first year. And then last year, I don't know if I knew how good they would be. I knew they would be relevant in the conference race, but I don't know if anybody saw this coming, like how good they were. They were elite. They were analytically strong across the board. They shot the ball extremely well. I mean, there was multiple games in the Big 12 conference where you had 7 different players make a 3-point shot. I mean, that is ridiculously balanced. And they weren't great on defense at the start, but that's Grant's specialty, and they got better and better. And so as you go through the NCAA tournament, I thought they had some good matchups. They just lost to a team that was really, really good, and I ultimately won the whole thing. And they had them dead to rights with about 2 or 3 minutes left, and just couldn't quite seal it. Missed a few shots, and Florida made some crazy shots. And as Grant would say, hey man, you got to make them miss them. But so as that ended, it quickly transitions, because like we were talking about with football, the portal's already open. You're trying to figure out, okay, and you have no time to decompress and rest. It's like, okay, what are we putting together for next year? The main piece, he was the Big 12 player of the year last year in JT Toppin, and they got him back. They paid him a bag of cash and got him to come back. He's kind of a tweener that I don't know. He's a 6'7" post player, but boy, is he really good.
Yeah.
And I think he's really smart to take as much money in college as he can, because I don't know what the NBA situation is going to look like for him, but you're building around him. And, you have a head start when you get the Big 12 player of the year to come back, but they'll be a preseason top 10 team. They were very active in the portal. They got a lot of their pieces of the roster back, added some high profile pieces from the portal, but they'll be a preseason top 10 team, and they're extremely well coached. They're going to play Duke. They're going to play Illinois at Illinois. They have a home and home with Houston. They have a home and home with BYU in the conference situation. So it'll be a very relevant, nationally relevant, I think, basketball season around here again. And the expectations would be to contend for the Big 12 championship and then make it to the Final Four if you can.
Yeah, I mean, man, JT Toppin, when I watched a couple games, especially through, the tournament, man, he was something special. And you're right. I love, and I would explain it the same way. He's the tweener because especially, scoring over 18 points a game, and he's somebody that creating those lanes and then finding the shots and then just being defensive as well, to where he's putting in his cut, and so guys that are going to lead by example and follow along with it, that's going to make a huge difference. And especially for any player and in any program as well that you're building around, which is interesting. My final question before moving on is, we know that, the transfer portal, the NIL, it's really shaping up a lot of college sports, not just football, but even in basketball as well. Because to me, I watch the NBA as well, but to me, it's like, I had a hard time really paying attention to the NBA because it's vastly changing. Adam Silver's trying to create parity in the league. But to me, it's like, well, if you ain't got the Lakers, the Celtics, the Warriors, up and on television, and especially with how big the money markets are, then your viewership is just going to basically take a plummet. But to me, with college basketball, if I get to know these players, right, and I see their growth within the program, I would then be able to know those players when they come into the draft. So we know the NBA draft is right up and around the corner. So when you're thinking of futures and then coming into the pros, my big thing is I always wish the best of successes for some of these players. But I think taking that extra year or even another year, like 2 years total, coming into college basketball makes a big difference to make a big impact into the NBA, because we know this watching the NFL. These guys get drafted and they are day one starters or they're big contributors into a 53-man roster. But it's like in the NBA, I got to wait 3-4 years for this puppy to cook until I really get to see the best of them. So how would you best explain it, especially with the relationship between college basketball and the NBA?
Yeah, and JT's a great example, because I think in years past, if the NIL is a lot of things, and some schools have really jumped, with both feet in, like Texas Tech has. Others have kind of flirted with it. If anything, it's been good for a lot of players and families out there. Okay, but I think in generally speaking, with what you're saying, in many ways, it's better for the sport. And what I mean by that is it keeps some of the better players there. And we get to selfishly, as a sports fan or a college basketball fan or college football fan, you get to watch some of these guys a bit longer. They don't feel the pressure to have to, leave. And Taj Brooks did the same thing. But Taj Brooks could have gone a year ago and wanted to spend one more year here, and Texas Tech made it worth his while. And so everybody wins. But I think sometimes you need a little seasoning, and sometimes guys aren't they're just not NBA players. Maybe they're professional players. Maybe it's overseas, but the NBA is the trickiest one of them all, because if you're not a first round draft pick, the money's not guaranteed. You could be the first pick in the second round, and if you don't make the team, or you end up on a 2-way contract, or there's just nothing guaranteed, or I got a bird in the hand, and my school here is going to feed me. I'm going to play at a high level. I'm going to wear great gear, whatever, be coached well, get to sign autographs with my buddies and just kind of live the life big man on campus type thing. And I get paid really handsomely to do it. Not a bad gig. Because sometimes these guys get to and the measurables just aren't there. It's like, man, you just don't, this isn't what we're looking for. Or, you're a fringe NBA guy. So from that standpoint, I love the NIL has allowed kids to look for reasons to stay in college for longer and not have to be forced to make the decision to go overseas or chance it and go to the pro or stay in the G League for whatever, and then you wash out in 2 or 3 years. So that's been the good part about NIL from what I can see. And like, in the Big 12, AJ DeBansa, he's going to be arguably the top pick in the draft next year. He's going to go to BYU for a lot of money, but it's great that he's going to be in the Big 12 for a year, and he's going to play Texas Tech twice. And I just think that's exciting for the sport.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting, and I think it's a good thing as well, because I want to be able to, get to know these players, build the relationship, and then be prepared for when they get into the big stage of the NBA. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. Give this puppy a couple more years to really kind of cook it up, and I think we will see a lot of really vast impacts when these players start to hit the NBA really, really soon. Chris, appreciate you for coming on by, and to tap in with all of our audiences here where people can get locked in on the Red Raiders all season long.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate enough to do I did sports radio in Lubbock for about 17 years, and gave that up about 3 or 4 years ago, and then started doing this podcast with this network, Locked On Texas Tech, but it's the Locked On Network, and then do that 5 days a week with another radio compadre of mine here in Lubbock named Casey Cowan, and we just cover Texas Tech 5 days a week. And if you're listening to a Texas Tech sporting event, whether it's football or basketball, I'll be on the air there as well. But Jake, you were very kind to have me on. I enjoyed talking sports with you, and keep hope alive on a Friday night, my man. Enjoy it. Football season not too far away.
I love it, man. Absolutely. A side note for you, because speaking of radio broadcast, that's definitely the click and the shtick I'm trying to go for, and even broadcasting. So this has been a well-running show for 6 years plus running, and continuing to get the best guests up out here, so that way they don't just hear me rambling on about my own opinions. I got great guests that come up on here. But appreciate you, man. Enjoy the Friday night and the weekend, and we will see you soon. And good luck to the season up and coming for Red Raiders football, man. Take care.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Jake.
Absolutely. Well, moving